So let's say there was a beginning of time, and at the beginning of time, there was nothing, just like blackness, nothingness, what the Bible describes as the deep, which literally is like nothing. But over this deep, there was a spirit named Yahweh who was floating over it. And he decided that he was going to create a world, but not just any world, he was going to create a world that existed in perfect balance. And in this world, there was a garden, which he called Eden. But this world was missing something, so he ended up making the crescendo of his creation, man and woman, who were to be image bearers of him. You can kind of think of this as the Hindu god Brahma, who created, or who is attributed for creation. But instead of, creating the world out of his four heads, Yahweh created the world out of nothing, out of mere breath. Yahweh gave his image bearers, man and woman, free will, meaning they could make any decision that they wanted. So in this garden that God had placed them in, he gave them one rule, and that was that they could not eat from the tree of evil, good and evil. They could eat from any other tree they wanted, but they could not eat from the tree of good and evil. And this was to keep the world in perfect balance and in perfect harmony. But one day, a serpent came into the garden, and he tricked the first woman, Eve, into eating from the tree of good and evil. And from there, the world was distorted with shame, with guilt, with brokenness, with pain, and with suffering. And Adam and Eve were then kicked out of the Garden of Eden because they could not continue to live in perfect harmony with God when there was shame and there was sin in the world. But there was hope. You see, before they were kicked out of the garden, God pretty much promised them that one day there would come a man who would be king. And this king would restore order. This king would redeem what Adam and Eve had just lost. And he would be a little bit like a Raja Suya, who he takes chaos and makes order out of it. And this man's name would be Jesus. So, from the time of Adam and Eve being kicked out of the garden, the generations are anticipating the coming of this king. And there's many great men. There's men like Abraham, who started an entire nation called Israel. There are great kings, like King David. But each of these kings falls short of creating chaos and turning it into order. Most of these men's lives ended up just creating more chaos. So again, they continued the wait. For hundreds and hundreds of years, the people waited for their king. So finally, the king was coming, except he wasn't coming how everyone expected him to come, or how we might expect a king to come. He wasn't born in a big palace. He wasn't born in a temple. He was, in fact, born in a little dirty manger in a little town of nowhere. And yet this king was the Son of God. Kind of like a Vishnu avatar. This was God incarnated in human flesh. The king was born to two peasant parents, Mary and Joseph. Mary was just a young virgin woman who was one day visited by an angel and told that she was going to carry the coming king. She was going to carry the Son of God. But this baby king didn't stay a baby. He grew up. And he started preaching things that people had never heard before. He was telling people to do crazy things like love their enemies, and instead of taking an eye for an eye, to turn the other cheek. And finally, at the crescendo of this king's life, a life that was lived pretty humbly. In fact, it is said that he didn't even have a place to lay his head. He was betrayed by one of those who was closest to him, and he was dragged away, and he was put to death, a vicious death, on a cross, which for the time frame was probably the most, it was the most vile public execution known to the time, and pretty much since then as well. But he died because he wanted to restore order. He wanted to give humanity a hope to again live in perfect balance and in harmony with Yahweh again. But probably the most amazing part of the story is that Jesus did not stay dead. This king didn't stay dead. He was dead for 3 days. And almost everyone believed that he would stay that way. But he didn't. He ended up actually rising again from the grave. And he did it. He conquered chaos. He conquered the disordered system. And I think it's easy at the moment to look around and see in all of the ways that the world is still not right, is still broken, and ask, did he really conquer this chaos? Did he really restore order? But Jesus said that he would come again. After he rose again, he appeared to a lot of people and to prove himself that he was alive. But he told them that I will come again. And this time, I will bring judgment. This time, I will bring order, and true peace. I will make the world new again. But through all of this, Jesus made it pretty clear that he was the only way to achieve this peace, to recover from shame and guilt and all of this other stuff, that he was the only way to have abundant life, that he was the only way to escape this judgment that was coming. And this judgment would kind of be like the avatar Kalki, who, is shown on this white horse holding a flaming sword, coming to restore the world to order. And that's kind of what Jesus will be like when he comes back. He will be on a steed, and he will have a sword coming from his mouth, and he will be coming to bring judgment to this world. But if we believe in Jesus as the King, as the one who came to restore the world to perfect balance, to perfect peace, to perfect communion with God, then we will be set apart. We will not be a part of that judgment, because we'll have Jesus standing as our mediator. And everything that we have done will be forgotten. So, why not rest assured in knowing, in the true knowing, that at the end of time, that when we die, that when everything seems chaotic and lost and, all of this stuff, that there is a king. And he reigns sovereign, and he reigns supreme, and that he's already done the hard part. That order has already been achieved. We just have to believe in him.